Hello everyone, my name is Untitled, and today we'll tell you all about how you can manage your accounting firm with Odoo. By the way, we have a special guest with us today. Kelly, our brand new junior accountant, will join the presentation as well. So, hi Kelly.
Hello, and lucky you.
Great vibe. Happy to have you with us today, Kelly. So, let's jump back to the topic of today because more and more professional accountants need to deal with automation, digitalization, but also providing added value to their end customers. And today we're going to see how using Odoo will help you with those challenges. It's about 2 years ago that we started to promote Odoo to professional accounting firms. And today, well, we have more than 275 accounting firms running all of their customers on a daily basis directly in Odoo. But we didn't only want to promote them Odoo. We also wanted to start a collaboration with them. And thanks to that collaboration, well, we managed to add multiple new features in Odoo completely based upon that collaborative feedback. Because who else can give us better feedback than accounting experts themselves? So let's go through a typical day of an accountant. And first of all, I would like to start with the pre-accounting. During this flow, we will not dive into the accounting application itself, but I will show you our brand new dashboard, especially for accounting firms, and how they can use it in order to manage all their customers. And on the other hand, well, we will dive into our document application that will be used as an exchange portal with your end customers in order to share and to request documents. So when you log in at odoo.com, well, you will immediately see all the customers you have to work with. And on the top of the page, you will see different activity types. All these activity types are connected immediately with all the different customers. So let's imagine that you arrive at the office in the morning. Well, you want to know with what customer you need to start with. Well, that's how you can use the inbox activity. If you sort on it, you will immediately see how many documents you need to process for what customer. So in this case, I will start with Ego. If you click again, well, we come back to the original screen. Well, those activity types, you can combine them with a search option as well. So for this demonstration, I imagined the name of the office in the name of the customer. So if I want to filter all my customers of the Brussels office, I can just type Brussels and it will immediately filter all the customers of the Brussels office. You can combine it with the activity types. So click, for example, on the annual accounts and you will immediately filter all the customers of the Brussels office that need to deposit their annual accounts. So let's jump back because of course it's not all. You can now also add tags on customer. So if I want to tag a customer with the responsible, for example, myself, well, I can just type my name, for example, type Winant, and add the tag immediately on the customer itself. Just save it, and the tag, you can add multiple tags, of course, and you can search now on the tags as well. So now if I filter on Winant, I will see all the customers that I'm the responsible of. So let's jump back again. You might have seen on the left side that I globalized all the customers by two different templates. One template for associations and one template for companies. Well, what is great in using templates is that you can immediately configure common master data in a template so that you don't have to do it every time over and over again for every new customer. You can just select your template, click on the button next to it, duplicate it, and start to using it for a new customer. But you can also select multiple customers. So using the shift option will give you the possibility to select multiple databases so that you can add actions in bulk. For example, if you have a new employee, well, you can just select all the customers he will work on, go to the action button and invite the user. It will immediately create a user in all those databases. And the day someone leaves, well, you can just click the same way in order to remove him. Also, tags you will be able to add in bulk. So in order to connect to a customer, well, you can click on the connect button or you can click on the right side of your customer in order to open multiple of them in every other tab. So let's dive into a customer. When you arrive at the customer, well, you will see the dashboard with all the different applications installed. We're going to start with the document application. If you open the document application, at the left side, you will see different workspaces that I imagined, but of course, you're free to create as many workspaces as you want. And every workspace comes with a specific type of tags so that you can exactly filter the documents that you want to see on the screen. So let's see how you can import documents into the database. Well, first of all, if you have the documents on your local storage, you can just drag and drop them over here. They will be uploaded on the cloud so that you can get rid of them locally. Same way you can use, of course, the upload button as well. But what is more interesting is to create shared links. Just select a workspace combined with one or multiple texts and click on the share button. When you click over here, you have the possibility to upload documents as well. And you can upload them by mail. So if you activate this feature, you can type, for example, purchases. And as from the moment that you use this email address now, purchases at the name of the customer.odoo.com, every time they send an email to it, it will immediately arrive in the accounting workspace with the tag new. And you can also add some activities to it. If you activate this feature, well, you will see all the different activity types. Remember what I said just before. If you link it to the inbox activity, well, every time a document comes in, well, you will see it immediately on the dashboard. Well, using uploading by email is great, but sometimes you're linked with the size of the email. So I prefer using shared links. We created an out-of-the-box link. You can copy it, and you can use it now and share it with your customer. So let's open it in another tab. You can just copy-paste the link, open it, and it will work out of the box. You can share it with your customer in order to upload these different documents in the database. So click on the upload button. I imagine some vendor bills here that we're going to treat together. So a big PDF file, for example, you upload it, you can get rid of it locally, and you will see that on the moment that you refresh the screen, well, it's immediately imported in the cloud as well. So first of all, let's open this document. You open it, you will see it's a big PDF with different vendor bills. So first of all, we're gonna split it. Just click on the split PDF function and you can start splitting all your documents. You can have multiple pages, single pages. I only have one here with multiple pages. So in order to split, you can just click between it in order to make it one bill. The moment that you're done, you can click from here in order to create vendor bills of them. When you click on it, we will split the PDF file, but we will also send them immediately to accounting. So that for every PDF, well, we create a vendor bill. If you open it, on the right side, you will see the image. On the left side, you will see the input screen. Let's jump back for a second. If you go back to our original documents, you can see that we removed the new tag and we added tag as being processed, and we also tagged it as being a bill. So that if now when I click on the new button, well, you will not filter anything anymore because they're all processed, so that you can filter on the new and the processed. And the same way, you will be able to filter on all the different types. In this case, we only have vendor bills. I also have some other workspaces here. I imagined one for private, for example, that you can use with the administrators of your customer in order to keep some documents, some important documents of them also in the same way in the portal. Driver license, ID card, deeds, for example, and they all have their own new type. So if you filter on the deed, you will only see the deeds. If you filter on the driver license, you will only filter the driver licenses. You can put access rights on it as well. So that, for example, if the accountant of your customer cannot have access to the private documents, well, you cannot give him access, but the administrators, yes, of course. You can also request some new documents. So just click on the request document if you need, for example, a missing ID card, the missing ID card of Mark. Give it a name, request it to a user from the database, one of your colleagues, or the customer in this case. You can select the workspace where the document needs to come in and select a tag. Well, it's an ID card here, so select the ID card tag. And you can write him an email. Hi, Mark. Please provide us with your ID card. And when you request it, well, we will first of all create a placeholder. A placeholder in the right workspace with the right tag. And Mark, well, he will receive an email so that he can reply on that email or click on the shared link in order to upload that document later. I also have one here for permanent file. You can see that, you might have seen it, it's linked to the dashboard that we saw in the beginning. It's about the placeholder for the annual accounts or for the corporate income tax return. So that if you deposit the annual accounts, well, you can come to here and change the document with the proof of filing. So if you go to a document, for example, the proof of filing for the annual accounts, well, you can come upload it over here. It will make sure that the activity is done so that it will reflect again on the dashboard so that it's not visible anymore. Actually, it's exactly the same that we work internally at Odoo. Well, we have a third-party provider that scans all our paper mail and they send it to a predefined email address. Every time the documents come in the inbox workspace, and our office manager, well, on a daily basis, she will assign the documents to different workspaces and to different persons so that everyone can see only his own documents.
Okay, so this is how my parking fines are processed.
I can see that we all receive the same internal emails. So let's jump back to our presentation. Because what we've seen over here, first of all, task management. From the dashboard, in one single click, you can connect to one or multiple customers. By selecting multiple databases, you will be able to perform bulk actions in order to invite new employees, to remove them, or add labels. You can also organize your activities by creating multiple activities. They will be visible immediately on the dashboard, and that you will have an overview of everything that is due for all of your customers. You can also create customer templates so that for common master data, you can put it in a template and duplicate it every time to create a new customer. And last but not least, you can filter, sort, and label all your customers so that you can immediately see all the records on the screen that you want to see. We also saw our document application that can be used in order to create placeholders, in order to request and to exchange easily documents with your end customer. And because it's fully integrated with Odoo, well, it's very easy to upload documents and to exchange with your customers. You can organize it in different workspaces with different tags. And because it's completely integrated with accounting as well, as from the portal, you can perform bulk actions in order to send, for example, the vendor bills to the accounting, but also all of your other documents. So the next flow is all about payables. Let's jump back to our database because we sent some vendor bills to accounting. Let's see how we can manage those. So we go back to the overview. Let's dive into the accounting application now. When you open it, well, first of all, you will see different tiles here. Every tile is a single journal. We're going to start with the vendor bills journal. You can see that we have 8 bills here, the bills that we sent from our documents application to accounting. Just click on them and you will see the same screen, that we've seen before. If you open the first one, well, at the right side, you will see the image. At the left side, again, you will see the input screen. Now, the same way as we send them to accounting, we also send them through the OCR in order to see how we can limit the manual interaction of your employees for the manual input work. So if you click on the refresh button, we will refresh all the different bills that are scanned by the OCR. If you wait a little bit longer, well, every 5 minutes we will refresh it for you. But if you don't want to wait as long as me, you can click on the refresh button and it refreshes all the bills in the OCR. So you can see the magic of the OCR. We can see that we didn't touch anything, but basically all information is taking over. So what does the OCR do? First of all, he search for the supplier. If it already exists, we search for the name, the address, but also the URL and the email in order to link it to the correct supplier. If it doesn't exist yet, well, it's even greater because we connect to the VIS platform and based upon the VAT number, we will create the vendor for you. And if on the image of the PDF file, well, we saw we can capture the bank account, also the bank account will be added to the contact form. By the way, I only sent PDF files here, but please note that you can also just take a picture of your bill, upload it on the document application, because also images will be scanned the same way by the OCR as the PDF. So next to that, we also have the bill reference. The bill date and the due date is completely taken over by the OCR. And if we take a look at the invoice lines, well, first of all, we will search for a label. We will search for a price excluding VAT. We will link it with a tax code in order to compute the total amount. But this is a bill for car expenses. Actually, it's one of my favorites because you can now link different expenses to each of the different cars that you manage in our fleet application. So you might have seen the column vehicle here. Well, if you dive into this one, you can link it. You can see the license plate over here. You can link it to the correct car. So you can just save it and we will go to the next one. Well, by the way, I only use the mouse for the moment. If you prefer to use the keyboard shortcuts, well, you can just click on Alt and you will see all the different keyboard shortcuts on the screen. So if I want to jump to the next one, well, I type Alt N. So the next one is a bill from Apple. Also here, we took over all relevant information. But you can see that the expense account is different and the tax code as well, because that's how our artificial intelligence works. Those two variables, we can never find it in the image itself because it's just not there. And that's how the artificial intelligence comes in place because based upon historical data, actually it's a combination of the label and the supplier. We will propose for every single bill the correct expense account combined with the correct tax code. We can see that we have an additional banner here, but it's because this bill was before, let's say, a closed tax period. So Odoo will warn you that the tax period is already closed. So we will process it on the next open tax period. So let's jump to the next one. The next one is a bill of VU. Also here, I'm not going to repeat myself every time, but everything is taking over, other expense account, other tax code. But we have an additional warning here because we scan the bill reference, we also search for duplicates. So in this case, you already found a bill for that supplier with that bill reference. So just get rid of this one. The next bill that we see on the screen is a bill for the purchase of a laptop. What is different here is that it's linked to an acquisition account. You can see that the tax code is different again based upon the artificial intelligence. We're going to see later how it is combined with our asset management. So next we have one from bpost. What is different here is that you have two lines. If there's two different tax regimes on the bill, Odoo will globalize it in every single line per tax so that we make the split for you as well. So we have some others here, Renewy, for example. What is different here is that it's two-page bill. If your totals are on different pages, it's not a problem neither, and the OCR will find exactly the information on the page that he needs. Also, again, expense account is different. So we have a few more here. Cafeo is for the coffee at our offices. It's another expense account because it's for personal expenses. And FedEx, what is different here is there is no tax on this bill. So also here it captured perfectly because there is no tax code that has been used. So basically, for all those bills, I didn't have to intervene manually for a single record. So basically, if we jump back to the list, you can see that you have all the different bills here, and we can just validate them in bulk now. Kelly, based upon a scale from 1 to 10, how impressed are you about our OCR and the artificial intelligence?
Oh, it's definitely a 10, but I wonder if you would still need an accounting department after seeing this.
Yeah, I understand, but we will never be able to, let's say, replace a total accounting department. But I'm pretty sure that by using the OCR, you will make some time, some free time that you can use for more interesting stuff than manual intervention. So once you're done, actually all this part you can outsource it to your customer because they can already scan it, send it to the OCR, and you as an accountant, you can intervene here and only correct. And once you're done, you can immediately post all the entries so that they're all validated and that they're all in your general ledger. So I'm done here for posting them. Let's jump back to the dashboard. You can see that the bills are not to validate anymore now, but to pay. I mentioned the one for the laptop. Let's see what happens there. If we open the bill for Computersma, well, because it's linked to an investment account, we immediately created the asset for you. Let's open it. If you open the asset, you will see that we took over all information. The header information that comes from the bill, but because I linked an asset model to the investment account, well, it creates also your depreciation method, the period, and the accounts that need to be used for the depreciations in the future. We already validated them. So you can see that the depreciation board is ready for you, but we also created immediately all the accounting entries. They are in draft and already created, let's say, in the future. If you want to see them, you can just open it and, for example, see what will be the impact in your general ledger when we're going to post them. What is great here is that you don't have to post them because every day Odoo will look for all the accounting entries that it needs to post so that as from the moment that you validate the bill, you don't have to intervene anymore. That brings me to the depreciation schedule. If you open the depreciation schedule, you will see that we will globalize them per account, per asset, so that you have an overview, of course, of your acquisition amount, depreciations, and a book value. But because we create the entries in draft, at every moment you can include the on-posted entries in order to simulate in the future. So if you want to see what your book value will look like in the next year, you can just already change the period over here and we will immediately adapt it because all the entries are already created in draft. So you can simulate. Let's jump back to the dashboard. There was another one that I want to discuss, the one from Renewy. You might have seen it, but the expenses are not for 2021. They are concerning the last year. So immediately from here, you can manage your cutoffs. If you go to the journal items, well, you can immediately manage cutoffs from the bill. So let's click on it. In this screen, you can say when the expense needs to be recognized. So for example, in this case, well, it's for previous year. So let's go and put it on the 31st of December. Select your accrual account, the provision one. In Belgium, it's, for example, 44 account, and select the journal we're going to create the provision in. miscellaneous operations, you can change the amount by percentage or change the amount over here. But I'm not going to change the amount here because it's a full provision for last year. So by selecting that, the moment that you create the journal entries, well, we will create two entries for you. The first one on the 31st of December in order to provision the expense in the right period. If you open it, you can see the impact on the general ledger. And when you jump back to the bill, well, we will also capture the provision itself and the reverse that we will reverse on the same date on the bill so that there is never an impact in your profit and loss on the day of the bill itself. So let's jump back to the presentation. First of all, we saw our OCR combined with the artificial intelligence. And the algorithm will try to capture all relevant information that you don't have to put it in manually anymore. And if the algorithm is not strong enough and basically some information is not correct, well, you can just change it manually and validate your bills after because the algorithm will learn from it. So that if, for example, the bill reference was not correct, just type it in manually. And when you validate it, well, we will find in the fields of the OCR and it will learn for the next one. And if the algorithm was not good enough, it means that it will not be good enough for the moment. So at that case, we trigger a ticket with our developers and they will create a template, especially for that supplier, so that the template will take it over from the algorithm and that we're sure that all the information is correct. So we have the best recognition rate on the market for the moment, not even taking into account the different templates. And the OCR combined with the artificial intelligence makes it very fast in order to process vendor bills and it will learn from your best practices. So processing vendor bills is great because you have a fast and user-friendly interface. You can work in batch. You can outsource the work upfront to your customer and just validate all of them in batch to post them to the general ledger. And if you need to manage automation like creating assets or managing cutoffs, you can immediately do it on the bill itself. You don't have to wait for the end of the year, for example. And as from the moment that you validate it, well, you never have to come back because we will keep track of when the accounting entries need to be posted. So next is all about receivables. Let's jump back to our database. Because if you use Odoo, you can let your customer use Odoo, for example, to create all their invoices so that you don't have to do it manually anymore because they create it for you. So let's see how it looks like to create a new invoice. Just click on the new invoice and create your first customer. Let's imagine that I want to create an invoice, well, to InBev. InBev is not an existing customer. Well, we will look for on the internet, and based upon our autofill functionality, you can just click on it and we will create the contact form for you based upon all the information that we found. Just save it and the contact form is saved. Now let's add the lines. Well, for the lines, I created different type of products. I imagined product for professional accounting services, another one, well, for professional legal services, and a last one for reinvoicing of expenses. Well, what is great about products is that you can link different information to the products. First of all, the account, but also the tax code, for example, and the price. And by the way, if you want to calculate in Odoo, you can do it immediately in the field. So, for example, if you want to calculate, well, 5 hours multiplied by the hourly rate, well, you can immediately calculate in the fields. You don't have to do it external Odoo anymore. You can see that the accounts are different, but you can also see that we have some analytic accounts that have been taken over here automatically because you can put default rules based upon different combinations. But in this case, I did it, for example, based upon the product and the customer. Well, you can immediately make sure that the right analytic accounts are defaulted on the accounting entry so that it will create the analytical accounting entries when you validate the invoice. So your customer can pimp the invoice as well. You can add some sections, for example. Let's imagine a section for services and another one for expenses. So when they created the different sections, they can now drag and drop it on the right place in order to create subtotals so that the invoice is more readable. They can also add a note, for example, services September 2021. So once they're done, well, they can first of all, of course, confirm the invoice. But as from the moment that they confirmed it, they can immediately send it from Odoo as well. So just click on the send and print button, and we will try to send an email to the customer. Well, of course, first of all, you need an email address. So let's add one. For example, save it, and we will prepare an out-of-the-box email that will be in the language of your customer. We take some interesting information here, like the bill reference, the amount, and the payment reference, for example. But we will also add immediately the invoice in PDF. And if there is an invoice format available, you can opt to immediately send that one as well. So let's send the email. And well, first of all, you can choose a template. We have 4 beautiful templates that you can choose on. The different colors that will be used will be completely used based upon the logo itself. And if you want, you can change the font, of course. Well, if you save it now, the email is immediately sent from Odoo. We print also the invoice, so you can see it similar as with the vendor bills on the right side. And if your customer wants to use the QR codes in order to be paid, you can add it on the invoice itself. You might have seen also that by validating the invoice, we created a deferred revenue. Well, it's completely linked, similar as with the assets, to the account. My professional services are always for different periods here. So I linked it to a deferred income account. And if we open it, well, you will see that we created deferred revenue for that revenue. We only take over the amount here. Why? Because, well, the reverse will always be in a different period, but also on a different revenue account. So if you click on edit, you will see the different models that I created up front. I have services for 2 months, for 6 months, and for 12 months, for example. So by clicking on it, we will inherit all the information immediately from the model. And if you confirm it, well, similar as with the assets, well, we create all the accounting entries that you can see over here. And for this case, well, we will reverse a 12th of that revenue, every month. And we also create the accounting entries up front. Similar as with the assets, you can see the impact. You don't have to post them because in real life, if we are in this case, well, at the end of September, we will post it for you. Let's jump back to the invoice. It's also a good moment to speak about our chatter. The chatter is what you can find over here. You might have seen it elsewhere already because it's not only there for the customer invoice, we also have it for vendor bills, for manual entries. Everywhere in Odoo, every record has a chatter. The chatter is great as an audit trail because it will capture all relevant information immediately linked to the record itself. In this case, you can see who created it and when, and all the changes that have been done since the beginning. Also the outgoing email, but even better when the end customer will answer, we will capture also the answer of it and it will be stored right here. So that if in 1 week, in a month, or maybe even in a year, you have any questions about it, well, you don't have to dive into your mailbox. You can just go to the record itself and everything is centralized over here. So that's about external communication. You can also communicate internally by using the log notes, for example. So if you type at, you will see all the different users of this database. You can have your colleagues, you can also have your customer. So let's, for example, log a note for Fabien. Please keep an eye on this invoice. And by logging it, it will be logged and it will stay in the chatter as well. And you can see that Fabien is in green because he received an email now with a link also to this invoice so that he can keep track of it. You can also add some activities immediately to the chatter. We have some of them, for example, to do, or you can change and create any others. You can set a due date on there and assign it, for example, to your customer. So if you have a doubt, for example, you can ask him, is this a legal invoice? And by adding the activity, if you schedule it, it will always be available on the chatter as well. And when he connects, he can see all his activities right over here.
Whoa, that's super nice. It's super handy actually. And don't get me wrong, but any chance we can have an activity type for happy hour?
I think that's a great idea. I would be happy to be the first one assigned to that activity type. Last but not least, your customers can always grant portal access to their customers. So let's see how that works. If you click on the customer, you can go to the action button and grant portal access, which means that he can connect to the database with only with a portal access. And if you click on the preview button, well, you will see how that works. He will see all of his invoices. He can download them later and pay them immediately online as well. So I created the invoice here manually. Of course, it was to show how that works, but you can also upload your customer invoices way more easily. If you have an electronic format, like in Belgium and in other countries, you can immediately upload the electronic format so that every information comes from the XML. If you have them in PDF, you can also upload them and send them through the OCR now, so that the OCR will take over everything from the PDF invoices. But what I wanted to show here is how you can import records from Excel as well. If you go to the favorite button, you can click on import records. If you load your file, an Excel file, well, I prepared one here, of course, for sales. You can open your Excel file, and based upon the column headers of your Excel, we will make the mapping with the correct information in Odoo. I do it here for customer invoices, but you can do it everywhere in Odoo, like contacts, chart of account, vendor bills, miscellaneous entries. Every single record, you can import it by Excel as well. So just import those. You can see that we import them in draft, not posted yet. So in order to find them, for example, you can use the filters now, filter on the draft ones, and you can immediately select all of them, similar as with your vendor bills, and post them all together. So that by importing in few clicks from Excel, you can post all your customer invoices from Excel as well. So let's jump back to the presentation. What have we seen here? Well, first of all, Odoo can be a very great collaborative tool. With the chatter, everywhere in Odoo, you can ease the communication internally, but also externally. And by using Odoo, you can provide your customers with a real management tool. They can manage their invoicing immediately in Odoo, and you as an accountant, you don't have to do double work anymore because it will be in the same database. You collaborate together in the same database. And if they have other needs, well, because we have multiple other applications, they can install them as well so that they have one integrated software for all their business. So next, let's have a look at our banks. When we jump back to our database, well, let's jump back to the bills that we processed before. They are to pay now, so let's pay them. If you click on them, well, you can see all the ones that are not paid. You can use the filters again in order to filter, for example, on the due date. If you want to see all of them that were due in August, well, you can use the filters, combine multiple filters in order to find exactly the records on the screen that you want to see. But I want to pay all of them. So just select all of them and register the payment. Select the bank. You might have different banks, so select the correct bank, of course. You can set the payment date, at what date we need to process the payments. And we're going to opt for the SEPA credit transfer in order to create a batch file, a payment file to be sent to the bank. When we create the payments, well, we'll create a payment for every single supplier. When you go back to the bills, you can see that they're all in payment now, so they're not there anymore. All the payments are over here. We have all the different payments that are now active in this database. Well, I want to create a batch file for all the ones that are with the SEPA credit transfer. So first of all, click on the group by payment method so that you can select all the ones that are with the type of SEPA. Now we're going to create a batch of it. So in order to take all of them together in a batch that we can send to the bank. So when you validate it, well, you might have these kind of warnings because, of course, some banks not all accept a payment file with different currencies. And I have one here for pounds and one for dollars. So indeed, let's go back and just delete this one in order to filter out only the ones in euro. So that way you can add an additional layer of grouping, for example, by currency, so that we can only select the ones in euro and create our batch based upon all the payments in euro. So once we're done, just validate it, and Odoo will create an XML that you can download and that you can send to your bank so that they will execute all the payments. So now that we created the payment file, let's have a look at how we reconcile them with our bank. If we take a look at the journal of the bank, well, first of all, you can click on online synchronization because you can sync all your banks immediately with Odoo so that you don't have to import the bank statements anymore. That you can connect immediately to your bank by clicking on the bank and clicking on connect. You link it to your bank, and every 4 hours, we will catch all the new transactions. We don't have only banks in Belgium, of course. If we type worldwide and we type, for example, America, well, we might see the Bank of America, for example, that you can connect with, but also some payment providers like, well, PayPal. If you type it over here, you will see that we can also connect. Made a few mistake there. So type over again. You can also connect PayPal with the online bank feature. So let's open a first bank statement that is already synchronized here. Basically, the synchronization will import all transactions, the date, the labels, and the amount. And as from the moment, well, that we add them in Odoo, we immediately post all the journal entries also. If we take a look at one, you can see that, well, it's not reconciled yet, but we immediately posted it, and we posted it on the suspense account. That way, in your balance sheet, well, your bank is updated in real time, and we will just update the suspense account once we reconcile it with the correct counterpart. So let's have a look at how that works. If you go back to the dashboard, well, you will see the number of items you need to reconcile here. Just click on it, and we will see and open our reconciliation screen. All the different gray lines are in or outgoing payments. So let's reconcile all of them together. The first one is about our batch payment that we just created before. You don't want to select all the payments again, of course, so just click on the tab for the batch payment and select your batch payment. All the different payments in there are immediately linked to it, and when you validate it, we will update and create the accounting entries. The next one is an incoming payment for Proximus. Well, based upon the label, we will immediately match it with the correct invoice. But you might have seen that, well, the incoming payment is less than the total amount of the invoice. So thanks to the reconciliation models that you can set up yourself, you can put some percentages of acceptance, for example. If you don't want to chase your customer for the remaining €3, well, you can just make sure that we propose a write-off account so that you don't have to chase those customers anymore and that you just write off in expenses in payment differences or something like that. So the next one is for an outgoing payment for bank fees. Thanks to the label, thanks to bank in the label, well, we can propose write-off accounts, different accounts based upon the label. So in this case, I proposed a bank account, an expense account based upon the label. The next one is again an incoming payment for DKV, but you can see that the amount is less than before. So it's let's say under the acceptance. So in that case, we will not write it off, but we will just propose a partial payment so that you can still chase them for the remaining amount. And not only single invoices can be proposed by the reconciliation, also different customer invoices. If we have multiple labels over there, well, it will immediately match with the different customers. And the last one, well, the last one is a transfer from one bank to another. So there is nothing to reconcile. So in that case, of course, you need to manually select the account. So you can select it over here, but if you don't want to select it, well, you can create multiple buttons, for example, one for internal transfers. And if you click over here, well, it will immediately heritage the expense account from the bottom. And in a few clicks, well, you're completely done. I can see that everybody loves our great Rainbow Man. So let's jump back to the dashboard. What happened now is that we reconciled all of those entries. Sorry. Open the bank statement again. If we open it, you can see they're all reconciled now. If you made some mistakes, you can just revert it. And if we take a look at the journal entries itself, let's take the same one as before. You can see that we updated the suspense account by the correct counterpart now. So that's how our banks work with Odoo. Let's jump back to our presentation. What do we see now? Well, first of all, you can integrate all your banks immediately with Odoo. There is no extra cost, there is no setup fee, and there is no setup time. Your customer can just connect once and your bank is synchronized. By using Odoo, you can provide added value also to your customer because all your precious work that you did, for example, in order to process the vendor bills, well, they can use it in order to create a batch payment to the bank so that they don't have to do it manually in double. And our reconciliation is crazy fast because thanks to the reconciliation models that you can set up based upon different rules, well, we can propose the correct counterpart, or if you have confidence in it, we can do it completely automatic as well. And you can combine different payments in batch payments so that your customer can use it to send to your bank and reconcile immediately the batch. So the next row is all about reporting. Let's jump back to our presentation, to our database, sorry. And first of all, well, we created a lot of different entries. Let's see how we can update them and change them easily. Therefore, we're going to start with the purchase journal. If we open this one, where we will see all the purchases that have been posted. You can use the filters in order to change, for example, the date and only see the bills of August. Well, in this screen, you have all the necessary information to look and to verify, for example, well, your tax report. You have all the accounts here, the labels, the amount in debit and credit, but also the tax grids. And the tax grids are very important because they are the link with your tax report. So you can immediately verify everything over here. The only thing missing is the invoice, is the image. Well, because we have everything in Odoo, if you click on it, we will take the invoice as well, so that you can have an overview of the bill itself. You can make it bigger, you can make it slower, you can hide it, or you can bring it back. To continue, let's take another one. For example, for the miscellaneous operations. Well, first of all, you can change the columns based upon what you want to see on the screen. If you want to add the balance, the analytic account, or whatever, you can modify the different columns based upon what you want to see on the screen. You can sort on the different columns. So for example, if we have all for remuneration here, for example, well, I made some salary bookings. Well, let's imagine that I was wrong and that I used the wrong account for the salary booking. Well, if you need to change it, you can drill down into the accounting entry itself, put it back to draft, and change it one by one. But it's a pain to change all of them one by one. When you stay in the list view, you can select multiple accounting items. For example, all of them, well, they're all wrong. Of course, you can use the filters and the group bys in order to find all of them and select all of them together. But what I want to show here is by selecting them, they become modifiable. If you click on there, well, you will see that you can change the account now. So for example, put the right one. It was one for the remuneration for directors. Well, have a look what happens if you select it. We will immediately update all the lines that you selected, they're uploaded, they adapted in batch. And if we take a look at the entry itself, well, you will see that in the chatter, we will store that so that it's also there for an audit trail that you can see when and who changed it. So now that we've seen over that, we'll have a look at the tax report. The tax report is always linked to a miscellaneous journal because we make the reconciliation, of course, at the end of the period as well. If it's red, it's overdue. If it's green, it's not overdue yet. So let's close the one from July because this one is due. If you click on the tax return, you will see the tax return for your country. I'm working in Belgium here, but of course in your country it might be different. If you're okay with the tax return, you can click on the closing journal entry. When you click over there, we will reconcile all open tax amounts for that period and calculate one amount to recover or to pay to the tax authorities. And if it's okay, you can post it. By posting it, well, first of all, we will close the VAT period. And on the other hand, we will print the tax report as well in PDF and we will add it to the chatter so that later, if you make changes, well, you still keep track of the first one that you sent. And by closing the period, well, I mean that we fill in the log date. If you go to the log dates, you can see that we filled in the log date for July so that remember when we process the vendor bills, you have the banner there. Well, now if you process a vendor bill before that date, you will have the banner and we will propose it to the next open tax period. And if you need to block all accounting entries, you can fill in the different log dates so that there is no accounting entry that can be posted before that date. So now that we've seen the tax report, let's have a look at some legal reporting. Well, first of all, you have the balance sheet. Again, I'm working here in Belgium, so it's the Belgium one. In your country, it might be different, of course. But by diving into the report, you can immediately change the date. For example, add it to the last financial year. You can add some comparison by month, by year. You can have different comparisons next one to each other. But if we dive a little bit further, you can see that we have the benefit of the year here. When you click on it, we will dive from the balance sheet immediately in the profit and loss. So let's open and unfold all of them, because now that we're in the profit and loss, we want to know what is in the transport fees. Well, from here, you can immediately drill down to the general ledger. And if you're still not convinced, you can even drill down till the bill. So we started at the balance sheet, we dived into the profit and loss, we drilled down into the general ledger and even to the bill itself. So it's very horizontal, and you can drill down everywhere in Odoo. And if you want to go back, you don't lose track because you can just start where you begin. Every report can be printed in PDF or in Excel. But if you want to provide it to your customer, you can even save it and export it, for example, in PDF and Excel, and you can link it to the document application. You can choose the folder where we have to save it with or without a tag. There is some other interesting reporting here. For example, the one for unrealized currency gains and losses. If you manage different currencies in the database, well, you need to update them at a certain moment, even if they're not realized yet. So this report will exactly give you that information. Grouped by currency, you will see the different amounts in the different currencies, what the balance was in the accounting currency at operation, and based upon the date that you want to open the report, well, you will see the adjustment that is necessary to post. So by clicking on the adjustment entry, you will be able to adjust it and propose the adjustment and revert it. On the other hand, we also have the disallowed expenses. Remember what I said with the cars before? Well, because you link it to a different car, you will immediately link a different deductibility to a car so that you can have an overview in the disallowed expense report per car. It's completely linked to the fleet application. So if you open a car, for example, you will see all the bills linked to it and also his deductibility. But let's keep the best for the end and let's open some management reporting. Let's start with the invoicing analysis. If you open it, you will see all your different invoicing analysis in different charts. But My preferred is the pivot table. Thanks to the pivot table, well, you can, for an example, open a report by month in order to see all your invoicing by month and open it, for example, per product. But you can easily change it and not do it per product, but for partner, for example, so that you have in a few clicks an overview of your invoicing per month per customer. But what is even greater is that you can insert it in a spreadsheet. If you click on the insert spreadsheet possibility, you can create a spreadsheet based upon the pivot table, and you can add some formulas next to it. So if you open, for example, the budget and the budget with actuals, well, in a few clicks, you can create some columns. First of all, you can set some budget on the customers, one with 1,000 euros, one with 2,000 euros, and use the common functionalities from Excel. Just drill it down and, for example, create a sum of it. Well, now you can calculate in the budget vs actuals in order to have the one minus the other. And you can drill that one as well. So now that you have in a few clicks this report, well, let's see what happens if we create some new accounting entries. Because you can see that for InBev, for example, for September, we only have 700 euros. If we save this one as invoice analysis, well, let's see what happens if we create a new customer invoice for InBev. So create one, just do it manually like we did before, InBev. Okay, and let's make it a huge invoice. Make it one for 1 million, for example. Well, because we just confirmed this one, we just created the record. Let's see what happens with the report. It's in the document application. You might have seen it. There is a different workspace for spreadsheets. You can create as many spreadsheets as you want, of course. And if you open it, you will see the impact immediately over here. So because it's linked to the data, it will update in real time. And if you want to add some additional filters, well, you might, for example, filter on the product. Give it a name and link it to the related model, for example, the one for products. We used some products before, so if you want to see the same report with only the accounting services, you can easily update your report thanks to those filters.
It's like magic.
It's pretty amazing, it is. So let's jump back to our presentation. Well, first of all, we saw a lot of reporting, but what is great is our integrated Odoo spreadsheets, completely integrated with all the information in the database. It's updated in real time, and you can collaborate, you can work together with it and share it. So if you like what you've seen, well, from now on, you can become a registered Odoo accountant. You can just go on our website, register your accounting firm, and we will get in touch with you in order to train you and propose you best practices in Odoo in order to use it in your accounting firm yourself. And last but not least, everything that you saw today is 100% free. We propose you the accounting application and the document application all for free. There is only a cost if you want to use the OCR. And everything that we saw today is completely available on mobile as well. So to end my presentation, I went interviewing one of our accounting firms that already worked for a long time with Odoo in order to share his experience.
Bonjour Didier,
Salut Vident.
comment ça va?
Très bien, écoute, ravi de t'accueillir chez nous.
Premièrement, un tout grand merci de nous accueillir ici dans ton cabinet.
Mhm.
Peut-être pour commencer l'interview, est-ce que tu peux m'en dire un peu plus sur votre cabinet?
Nous, on a été créé en 2016, on est une vingtaine de collaborateurs. Notre clientèle, elle se constitue surtout de TPE, PME.
Ok.
Le numérique a toujours été au centre de notre stratégie.
Le numérique, ça nous amène exactement au sujet d'aujourd'hui, je pense. En cherchant sur le numérique, c'est comme ça que vous êtes tombé sur Odoo?
Oui, nous, on fait une veille permanente sur l'ensemble des outils du marché.
Ok.
On a fait énormément de tests depuis notre création. Et fin 2019, on a identifié Odoo comme une solution s'adressant maintenant aux experts comptables. Et on a décidé de faire un test dessus. D'ailleurs, à l'époque, c'est toi qui m'avais même formé dessus.
En effet,
Ouais.
on a commencé ensemble. Je ne me rappelle plus le nom du client avec lequel on a commencé. Je crois que c'était un premier essai.
C'était un petit groupe
C'est ça, ouais.
qui faisait environ 2,5 millions, 3 millions de chiffre d'affaires, mais une configuration assez intéressante,
Ouais.
puisqu'il y avait une holding, il y avait une société d'exploitation en France et une filiale aux
Aux
États-Unis.
États-Unis, c'est ça, oui.
Donc des problématiques de gestion des intercos, de gestion des devises, et également tout un ensemble de reporting mensuel à produire.
Ok.
Mm.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres clients qui ont suivi après celui-là?
Oui, parce que l'essai a été concluant assez vite, hein, donc on a décidé d'élargir assez rapidement à d'autres clients. Donc tous nos nouveaux clients, ou la majorité de nos nouveaux clients, sont maintenant équipés d'Odoo. Et aujourd'hui, on a plus d'une centaine de dossiers qui sont traités sur Odoo dans notre cabinet.
Une centaine de dossiers,
Ouais.
c'est déjà pas mal en effet.
Ouais.
Est-ce que peut-être pour continuer dans ce nombre de dossiers, parce que c'est quand même pas mal en effet, comment a été la transition vers Odoo? Est-ce qu'il y a eu des difficultés par rapport à ça? Comment a été la collaboration avec Odoo?
Non, il y a eu très peu de difficultés parce que ça a même simplifié notre relation avec le client. Pour le client, déjà, lui n'a plus qu'une seule interface. Hein,
Oui.
donc, il a un seul outil, soit sur son ordinateur, soit sur son mobile, puisque l'application est également fournie.
En effet.
Hein, il peut donc facturer ses clients, il peut payer ses fournisseurs, consulter ses soldes bancaires. Consulter également directement l'ensemble des documents, y compris ceux qu'on lui produit. Hein, et il peut nous contacter directement depuis l'application. Donc pour lui, ça simplifie forcément l'expérience.
Oui. Et surtout que du coup, bah, vous travaillez ensemble maintenant dans la même solution et vos clients peuvent bénéficier aussi de votre travail, d'avoir fait tout l'encodage dedans pour, par exemple, les envoyer des fichiers bancaires et faire les paiements directement grâce à votre travail d'encodage en fait.
Ah oui, c'est extrêmement collaboratif, hein, donc ça c'est fort bien puisqu'on peut choisir le niveau de collaboration et de délégation avec le client, donc ça c'est parfait. Hein, et du côté collaborateur, c'est également intéressant puisqu'il y a beaucoup moins de mails, etc. Donc il peut travailler uniquement dans l'environnement Odoo. Avant, on avait un logiciel de pré-comptabilité et un logiciel de production. Il fallait donc basculer régulièrement entre les deux. Et ça posait certains problèmes de friction en termes de production. Hein, donc, pour le collaborateur, il y a un premier effort quand même à faire sur Odoo, parce que ça le change un petit peu d'une solution de production comptable traditionnelle, parce qu'on est quand même dans un environnement ERP où il y a des contraintes d'intégrité de données qu'il faut assimiler. Mais une fois qu'on a bien compris l'environnement, je dirais que pour le collaborateur, c'est beaucoup plus simple puisqu'il a une interface. Il a une interface qui est beaucoup plus agréable et moderne. Il peut profiter des outils d'automatisation qui sont fournis, que ce soit en OCR ou en intégration bancaire. Et puis, il peut suivre avec la piste d'audit, il peut suivre l'intégralité des conversations autour d'un document, etc. Donc, c'est plutôt beaucoup d'avantages pour le collaborateur aussi. Et une fois qu'ils sont assimilés la solution, ils ont du mal à revenir en arrière, en fait.
Ça fait plaisir d'entendre. En tout cas, on espère que vous allez pouvoir collaborer avec nous encore pendant longtemps. Et un tout grand merci à toi d'être présent aujourd'hui, de partager cette expérience avec Odoo. Et bah, j'espère te retrouver bientôt, Didier.
Ah, mais j'y compte bien aussi. Odoo fait vraiment partie de notre stratégie et on a envie vraiment d'avancer avec vous.
Super,
Voilà.
un tout grand merci, Didier.
De rien, merci Vidant.
So thank you very much, Didier, for sharing that experience, and I'm definitely looking forward to continue working with you in the future. And thank all of you for being here during the presentation. I hope you will love Odoo Experience, enjoy it, and I hope that we can collaborate together in the future.
It was a pleasure, guys.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this Q&A session. Winant, thank you very much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
We'll only have some short minutes to discuss a few questions that we found in the chat, but you'll also find a link to the extended Q&A session where Winant will join you directly to discuss the rest. So quickly, Winant, to go through a few questions while we can. Can you select multiple files to upload?
Yeah, I'll do it fast so we can have at least a couple of questions here. But yeah, in the beginning of the presentation, I showed it, how the document management system works. So there is different ways to upload your documents. You have the possibility to drag and drop them. You have the possibility to send them by mail or to use the URL. Both, of course, make it possible to select multiple files. But as I mentioned also in the presentation, I think the URL is the best because sometimes, well, you're a little bit blocked with email size. So I would go for the URL.
Thank you. Next one quickly. How much space will get in the Documents app?
Yeah, it's a good question actually. What is important to know is that everything that we saw today, the offer for accounting firms, is actually in our SaaS environment. And in the SaaS environment, there is no limit. So you can go, there is no limit for the documents. However, if you would use, let's say, accounting or documents on another platform like Odoo SH, there might be some fees, but for accounting firms, everything is in the SaaS environment, so there is no limit for the space.
Cool, thank you. So about the OCR scanner, apparently it always puts the payment reference in the bill reference field and not in the payment reference field. Is there any way we can correct this?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. Of course, it's better to see the examples where we talk about, but it should be because the algorithm is supposed to, let's say, discover both different fields, so as well the bill reference as well as the payment reference. And because the algorithm is supposed to learn from, it's supposed to catch it separately. So my advice here would be, if it's not okay, actually the first time you need to change it manually, like if you fill it in manually, and by validating the bills, actually the algorithm is supposed to learn from it, so that the next time it's taking over. Because all customers use, let's say, the recognition, it might be affected. But anyway, if it's still wrong, don't hesitate also to create a support ticket, and they can see if the algorithm is wrong for those vendors.
All right, great. I don't know if in 10, 20 seconds you can say quickly something
Yeah, we
about
can.
PSD2 connection with banks.
Yeah, sure, I can do it in 10 seconds. I think Alain already answered, but yes, indeed, there is a PSD2 connection. However, the connection is not immediately from Odoo. We interface with different providers that have currently the PSD2 certification, and we connect with them. So basically all banks covered with, let's say in Europe, most of the time it will be Ponto and Celtech. They are covered. And the best way to see what banks are covered is to see it immediately in Odoo itself. If you go on and you click on the online sync, you will see all different banks that are covered. So yeah, I think I have to stop there, right?
Thank you, Winand, and don't forget to join us in the extended
Yeah.
Q&A session.
I'll be there. Thank
Bye,
you very much.
everyone.
Bye bye.